spinny thing. We're live,
We're
Kiwi.
live. Hey, how's it going, guys?
What is happening, brother?
Oh,
Oh, yes.
working my
Okay,
tail off.
thank you. All right.
I had to get my own drink because Mrs. Kiwi's out of town. So,
Oh, wow. What do you do?
but I did get to choose. So it's all
Okay.
good.
All right. It's got to be weird not having a woman around to do that stuff. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. You're brave.
Oh,
Dude,
there you
I
go.
just watched the video you posted about an hour ago,
Oh, okay, yeah.
stripping that
The old
wagon.
wagon. Yep.
Yeah, it's crazy. Um, I don't ever want to do that again.
No, I was worn out, man. By the end of the day, I was done. I was fucking
It was
done.
like, okay, pulling the motor is one thing, because like I'm picturing myself there, in your shoes. I'm like, all right, well, pulling a motor is one thing because like the nose of it is off, and all right, well, the tranny, okay, 2 bolts and cut the cable and suck that thing out, fine. But the rear end, bro, there's just like no, I just drew a line right there. There's no way.
Yes. Yeah, it was hard going, but it was a good little haul. So
Yeah, you got a lot of good stuff.
yeah.
So what's going to be with that? So yeah, I saw the video. There was a question as to the nature of that engine, which engine that was. And yeah, it's definitely the Plymouth. So what's going to be? Are we going to put the motor that's in Marge now?
Yeah.
Is that going to stay in Marge, and we're going to build this engine and put it into Marge, or is it the other way around?
No, I want it to be kind of the other way around. And that if that motors will run, if it's not bad, and it just has to be as good or a little bit better than what's in Marge now. And I'll put that in, and then we can actually rebuild Marge's motor that way.
So that means we have to get this thing running on a stand.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds reasonable. You can fire it up on the floor.
Yeah.
Okay.
I've got a couple of engine stands off. Well, not Polly's, but other engines, which I'm sure we can make work. And
you've already got it bolted to the transmission, so the starter and everything we need is right there. We just need to.
Yeah.
All right. So Dr. Art and I were going to come over your place this afternoon. He got hung up with cabinet delivery or something like that.
Right.
So we're planning to be at your place tomorrow morning, like 9, 10 o'clock.
Okay.
So maybe we can light the motor up then.
We can give it a try, yeah. It's still in the back of my truck at the moment.
All right.
I haven't even had a chance to get it out, so.
All right. So, but in the meantime, you know how rude we are, bro? We started this whole thing, and we didn't say anything to
anybody.
Anybody.
We just
welcome
amongst ourselves.
Yes. I see Fubar the axe. Mexican Spec is here. I don't see Zero or Harry. Jamie is here. Dead Dodge Garage.
Hey, Jamie.
The best Mopar channel in all of the internet. You guys are into Mopars at all, go over there and sub to Dead Dodge Garage. Or else. Let's see. Terrence Seymour.
We've got Zero in the house. Fubar's here. Mexican Spec.
Yeah. So,
boys are here.
Everybody. All right. There's Zero. All right. This is a good question. Glenn Nickerson, can light pass through the dark, forbidding presence of kiwi? Yeah, I mean, it's been known to happen.
Well, yeah. One ear to the other.
He does have his own gravitational pull, and the rumor is that no light can escape. But clearly, he can be seen on video right there. So there's something to that.
I must be real.
You have to be in some dimension, at least. Yes, 72Z28, Gutenabend. Yes. Okay. And Zero put up the link to Jamie's channel, Dead Dodge Garage. So, like I said, you guys into Mopar stuff, just go over and sub anyway. Just your general car guy. He's excellent channel, and of course Kiwi's channel. There's a Zero put up the link to Kiwi's channel. One of the most helpful humans on the planet. Thank you, Zero. Let's see. what was this now? Joe K. Tony loves his XJ so much that he took its computer on a nice date by the lake. Yeah, we had a good time. We watched the people fish. Yeah, we watched some birds. It was really cool.
I'm clearly missing part of this story, but hey.
So I started shooting a video at the shop. This was like yesterday morning or the day before. I don't even remember. It's all one day to me. It's all one day now. So, sorry, I started shooting a video at the shop, and there's a bunch of trees, old trees that overhang the shop and the parking lot. So they came in to trim the trees while I was in the middle of trying to shoot a video. So I said, well, it was too much noise. It was chainsaws, all kinds of crazy stuff going on. So I took the computer, and there's a beautiful little spot about a mile from my shop called Nice Mill Dam. And it's right off the road, and it's just this, it's beautiful. It's beautiful. It's just, a valley with this stream running through it and waterfalls and everything else. So I finished shooting the video there with the computer. Let's see. Nico, I have an older Mitsubishi car. I'm restoring it. And as an automotive technician, that's why I know you, Uncle Tony. Huh? I have an older Mitsubishi car. I'm restoring it. And as an automotive technician, that's why I know you, Uncle Tony. Well, okay. Now, Kiwi also has an old Mitsubishi car.
I do too.
What are you doing with your old Mitsubishi car? I haven't seen that thing since the last time I was in the parking lot.
Well, it's in the same spot, in the same car park. Yes, parking lot.
It's starting to meld with the scenery.
A little bit, yeah. I've actually gone kind of blind to it. I drive.
The Franklin Chamber of Commerce is adding it to the tourist stuff.
Yeah. Oh, you got a super chat there. Nice. There we go.
Colin L. Thank you for the super chat, my brother. What's a good torque wrench without breaking the bank? I can't afford a snap-on $700 wrench. That stuff is just so friggin' ridiculous. That's
$700. Wow.
Yeah. Honestly, I have several torque wrenches. Actually, I have a Craftsman 3/8 torque wrench. Not Craftsman. I say Craftsman snap-on. My go-to torque wrench it's an ancient Craftsman that I've had since probably since about the middle 80s, and I check it periodically against other torque wrenches just to make sure that it's still on. I make sure I break it down every time. You know what I mean? It's lasted me forever. I don't know. I can't really give you a recommendation of a modern torque wrench. What do you think?
I use I've got a couple of ones made by Teng, like TENG, and they've just started pushing. They're the ones that I bought in New Zealand, and they've just started pushing into the market here in the States, and it's really good stuff, and like a lifetime warranty. It's not kind of Craftsman or Harbor Freight cheap, but it's not snap-on prices either. So. Yeah, I would consider that. But if you're really on a tight budget, they're sure to have something at Harbor Freight that will get it done. It depends. If you're going to be using it a lot, then you pay a bit more money. But if you've just got one project to do, probably just a Harbor Freight one will do you good.
Yeah. What's it? You can't beat the old torque wrenches, man. You can't beat them.
Well, some of that old Craftsman stuff really was pretty good. Yeah, and then they had to start trimming it back to so they could trim the prices back. They had to trim the quality back. So,
Anthony P saying, "Is it just me, or are there a lot of UTG live videos lately?" No, there's actually fewer than we used to do. We do 2 a week. We do one every Sunday night, which is just here at the house, right? And then we do the Wednesday night tech talk, which is this is the last one we'll be doing at the house. We'll be doing the next one back at the shop. So I said we only do two of them a week. And then we've got the podcast coming. Can't forget about the podcast that's coming, but I want to talk about that right now.
Tell me about the podcast. I don't know anything about that.
I can't tell you about the podcast yet. You cannot know about it yet, other than that we're doing a podcast. And I'll get you some merch for it ASAP.
Super special guests and all that, is it, or like?
It's slightly different take on things than what we do on this channel.
Okay.
right? So in other words, like a bigger picture stuff. If that makes any sense.
I think so. Yeah.
You know.
Conspiracy theories and all that kind of fun stuff.
Oh, yeah, borderline into the conspiracy theory end of things. Mostly just the bigger picture. Like on this channel, we focus on really nuts and bolts and very straightforward historical stuff on particular engines and so on and so forth, and how-tos and all of that, right? The stuff we always do. It's like a big variety of things. But there are bigger issues that affect everybody that's into cars, trucks, motorcycles, planes, boats. You see what I'm saying? There are bigger issues. There's different laws, there's different trends, there's different movements, there's different things, right? So that's where we're going. That's where we're going with the new podcast. A slightly broader view of things than what we currently.
It'll be interesting.
Yes. And then, of course, there's Dr. Art. Dr. Art is in the house. Hey, man. Yes. Yes, and Maggie isn't it? I think that's wait. Which one is barking? I can't tell which one it is now.
Someone there was just asking if my shop is close to yours. No, actually, Tony's new shop is a little bit further away. Oh, Wayne Puzzle. Yeah, it's about another 10 minutes. What's that?
But it's worth the trip.
It's worth it. Well, absolutely. Actually, I'm kind of looking forward to doing that again because I don't think the dynamic doing it on separate screens is quite the same as when we're actually.
You just want to sit close to me, Kiwi.
Well, I do miss being able to torment you by just like leaning in and then seeing.
Yeah. Next week. Next week will be in a new shop.
Yeah. Something to see being actually face to face, I think.
All right. So where was Dr. Art? Dr. Art was where the hell did he go? He was here someplace.
Here's a tech question from Chris. Hi, Uncle Tony and Kiwi. What primer would you recommend over bare metal? The car will sit outside with a car cover on it. Epoxy, a good quality epoxy, not a cheap one, but a good quality epoxy. You don't need to put a lot on. Just get yourself a gallon can and get that onto the bare metal. Not a lot of paint will stick straight to bare metal. That epoxy is one of them, and things will. The next layers of paint will stick to epoxy. You will have to, you can't just load more primer on top though. You've got about a 7-day window with epoxy and then you have to sand it again. So if it's going to be sitting outside with a cover on it, you will need to sand it all thoroughly, the whole surface again. But epoxy is really the only way to go. So.
I know nothing about that stuff. I go to the auto parts store, buy a can of primer.
Rattle can, yeah. Rattle can.
Where's I go? Dominic Scarfo. Tony, can't wait for the propane engine fuel ratio is 15 5/8 to 1. I worked on it today. I'll be working on it somewhat tomorrow when we get back from Kiwis. I hope. I don't know. But I'm working on it. And I just keep getting distracted with stuff. But soon, very soon, we'll have it up, running, and we go from there, Let's see.
John M's 2 hacks. Oh, hey Jeff, how you doing?
That's in the house. What's happening, brother man? There's another great. He's just an all around great YouTuber, drag racing guy. Right?
Yeah.
Right. Jeff's channel, so we can get him some subs too.
Yeah. So right below 2 hacks there is John M asking if a car sits for winter storage, is there a way to reduce wear on startup to the cam and lifters, or should I not worry?
Okay.
I say don't worry about it too much. It's just winter.
Wait, where was? Oh, John M. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. If a car sits for winter, is there any way to reduce wear and startup to the cam and lifters? I wouldn't worry about it if it's just short-term storage. If it's like, when I say short-term storage, if it's like a year or two, that's all it is, it's generally fine. More than that, and what can tend to happen, unless the engine is completely sealed up, is that it is subject to the atmosphere, stuff that happens in the atmosphere. So at that point, maybe you start to get surface rust on some of the, unprotected parts, because whatever oil is on there slowly drips. You know what I mean? Or it becomes incorporated with dust and stuff in the air, and so it doesn't have that protective quality anymore. So you could start to get some rust at that point. But generally speaking, yeah, if it's only been sitting for a year or 2, 3 years, I wouldn't even worry about it, man. Just send it, throw some gas in the bitch and go. Yes, right. Yeah, rock also. Yeah, fill the bowl so it just pops right off. Yep. That's the important thing. You just want to avoid cranking any engine that's been sitting for any amount of time. You want to avoid cranking it more than what's necessary. You know what I mean? If you can get it to just, I'll tell you the truth, you don't even worry about getting it running. Just get it to kick. Because when it kicks, it'll pump that oil or throw the oil and at least get stuff going. You know what I'm saying?
Yep. Charlatan Zimmerman, Kiwi, do you use air tools like impact wrench or new battery power? I use an air impact, like I've got a nice big grunty 1/2-inch drive one, which is good for the big stuff and wheels and stuff like that. But everything else I use battery power. I find it much easier with the battery power, not having that airline following you around and getting jammed on shit and tripping over the airlines. And so yeah, I'm a battery power guy, which except for cars, with the exception
I'm
of
all
cars.
about it. I'm all about the extension cord.
No, are you?
What's funny is that here at the house, I have a big air compressor and I've got all air tools and stuff like that. Which when I last left the industry, that was it. It was just it was before really plug-in electric tools were widely used. Yeah, plug-in drill, of course, right? Plug-in sawzall, but everything was impact guns and everything was air ratchets were all the thing. So I've got a big air compressor here and I've got a bunch of air tools that just absolutely never ever get used. And at the shop, I've got everything plug-in electric. I don't like the battery stuff because it always drops dead when you need it the most. Just when you're at that, am I wrong? Right? No matter what, it always just you reach that breakout point where it's just about to cut through. You get the critical point, and it's just and it's, no. So I just go extension cords.
You do need a lineup of batteries.
Yeah, I don't want to deal with that. And then, of course, they explode and burn your place down. So
there is that. Yeah.
So classic reaction. Thank you for the super chat. I just uploaded a video to my channel about Brian Cabral, Uncle Brian. He lied about military service. Stolen valor is not cool. Okay, so most of the people on this live don't know who Brian Cabral is. So Brian Cabral is my super troll. This guy is awesome. He makes a video about me like literally every day. And he has for like 5 years now. Sometimes he makes 2 or 3 videos about me every day. It's just the thing he does. And it's hard to explain. I can't really explain. It's a thing. So at any rate, he makes all of these things. He claims that, I was a Marine, I was this, I was that, I was there, I was in the Hells Angels. I was, you were anyone. So at any rate, it's just this ongoing thing. And evidently, Classic Reaction here has made a video about Brian lying about being in the military. So he makes up stories. He's got a girlfriend. He's got this. He's got that. It's sad. It's a sad thing. He's like a lonely guy. He sits in the same place in every day and makes this video like into his phone. It's sad. It's tragic, really. But that's why I don't really like to pick on him or anything. It's anyway, yeah. Classic Reaction. Okay. Let's see.
So what's on to be? Kiwi, I have a 72 Valiant with a painted white roof. Has some patina that I want to preserve. I think it's enamel paint. What kind of clear do you recommend? Well, apparently that stuff Vice Garage is selling is pretty good. And he's using a catalyzed clear coat. So yeah, I've heard good things about that. Apparently, it's not just one of his gags. It's like it's the real deal thing. So, but yeah, really, Yeah, any catalyzed clear, is gonna be okay over enamel. But yeah, for what? Yeah, you certainly don't have to go crazy on the price of it, on the quality of it. But I mean, clear coat's actually fairly cheap anyway. People talk about the high price of automotive paint, and the high price is the base coat. Base coat can be $1,000, $1,200 a gallon, and a really, really good clear is like $400 a gallon. So it's like a third of the price. But it's all the pigments and all the colours, and the sparkles and the pearls, and all that stuff. And red is the highest priced paint that's out there.
And it's hard to cover too. Red, you have to go over.
Yeah,
Well, you
red
use
doesn't.
more red per volume than any other paint.
Yep, but it needs a lot of stabilizing chemicals in it to stop it turning pink, because they fade and just kind of eventually turn pink. And the cheaper the red, the quicker they go pink. So mid-range, catalyzed clear, and have at it.
Right. Rick S. Tony, UT, about manifold gaskets. What type did the factory use on the head of a slant 6? Also, can I still use a little steel shim between both manifolds when surfaces are restored? Tips. Yes. So the thing with the slant 6 is they use a steel shim gasket, and the slant 6 intake manifold exhaust manifold actually works more like a header than it does a typical log style manifold, because each of the branches are individual runners. So that manifold there's a lot of flexibility built into that manifold. Now, to use a steel shim between, so you've got the intake and the exhaust manifolds coupled together, and then you've got the cylinder head, and they use a steel shim gasket between the two. So it's embossed around the intake ports so they don't leak, but it's not embossed around the exhaust ports. And now, if you notice all of the hardware on a slant 6, all has those conical washers. It has conical washers, and then it has those triangle-shaped washers. And those things specifically are there to allow that whole assembly to float, to expand and contract, and not be constricted at all. So the way that's designed, the only aftermarket gasket that will last on that, aside from like the stock steel shim gasket, are the who makes those now? It not Cometic. It's a graphite gasket. The name's right on it. Is it Remflex? Oh God, I think it's Remflex. I think that's the name of it. But yeah, and yes, you can reuse the original one. I've reused the original one 1,000 times on those. Give it a spray of copper coat, and clean it up really good first. Hit it with like steel wool, get it nice and clean, perfect clean. Spray some copper coat on it and reuse it, and you can reuse those over and over and over again. Just like the intake manifold gaskets for the big blocks. Okay. Yes, Remflex. Thank you, Jamie. Let's see.
Mostly Mopar. Bedazzle paint costs more. Yes, bedazzle paint definitely does cost more. Yeah.
So if you want to be flashy.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Riley, 2021. Tony, in your video about the universal exhaust gaskets, does that count only for stock manifolds? Yes. When we were talking about that particular type of gasket, I was referring to its use on stock exhaust manifolds. So, like for instance, small block Chevys, no gasket. The exhaust manifold gets bolted straight to the head. Big block Chrysler, no gasket, straight to the head. Some engines, like some of the small blocks, had heat shields between the exhaust manifold and the spark plugs. So they used a gasket, but it's only a steel shim gasket, and it allows that bit to slide, right? So now if you replace that steel shim gasket with one of those, it's like pleated, silver on one side, it's paper on the other. What happens is over time, okay, think about how a glacier works on the landscape, okay? The glacier just moves a tiny little bit, and it carves out like the Grand Canyon, okay? So that's what happens with those gaskets with an exhaust manifold, with a log style exhaust manifold. The the exhaust manifold heats at a different rate than the cylinder head. Every time they expand and contract, there's slight movement, and it works to weaken that gasket until eventually the gasket blows through. So that's why you don't want to use those gaskets long-term on a cast iron exhaust manifold. Now, if you take a pair, and I didn't do this, I should have done this in the video. If you take a pair of those, right, and you put them back to back, you put the silver part out to the silver part out, sandwich them together, they make decent header gaskets. But if you don't do that, then they'll burn through. The paper part of it gets hot, it burns through. But if you put the silver end to the silver end back to back, then yeah, you could use them as a header gasket. I've done it a bunch of times. Okay. And then there was silence. It's called dead air.
Dead air. Yeah. What's happening now? Long Island Mopars. I thought Earl Scheib was gone, mate. He's long gone. He was replaced by Mako.
When I'm sorry, guys. I'm getting sidetracked with some of the drama and weirdness here. All right. Let's see. Dean Stevenson's in the house. Our favorite paranoid schizophrenic. How are you doing, my brother? You are not a Mitsubishi airplane. Tell yourself. Yes. I need to do a podcast with Dean Stevenson. He's a fellow Kiwi, bro.
He is, yes. Yep. Chris Cadman. I find a stucco. Where's he going? Find a stucco paint roller helps my body cover my bodywork. Oh, that's not good.
Riley, what's the difference between sprung and unsprung weight? Sprung weight is anything that's above the suspension, let's say. Unsprung weight is anything that's attached to the ground. Does that make any sense? So if it's attached to the ground, it's unsprung. If it's above the spring, it's sprung. So unsprung examples of unsprung weight would be the tires and wheels, the differential, spindles.
Yeah, the whole live rear axle is unsprung.
Yes. Let's see. Lower control arms. Well, I see now that it depends. Yeah, lower controls would be unsprung. But that depends on how it's all done. So some cars are sprung from the upper control arm, some are sprung from the lower. But anyway, it basically anything that, okay, when you go like this to the car, if you bounce the car, anything that moves when you bounce the car is sprung weight, and anything that stays put is unsprung weight.
But unsprung weight is the enemy of handling. Like if you want a car to handle well, you work on trying to get the unsprung weight as low as possible, because the unsprung weight is basically uncontrolled.
Yes.
So yeah, and I mean we're talking nth degree stuff here. I mean, you know, a full live rear axle. I mean, I had to lift that back axle out of that Plymouth wagon on Monday, and God damn, that was heavy.
I wouldn't have done that on a bet, man. You're a better man than I am.
So yeah, but you know that amount of weight, which is basically uncontrolled, you know, it's not great when you're trying to do lap times. But I mean, they've been putting solid rear axles like that in cars for literally hundreds of years, and it's not an issue. But some people like to kind of start talking, you know, using big words like unsprung, or phrases like unsprung weight. But yeah, really, say unless you're doing lap times, trying to win a rally stage, trying to race, then you know your regular road car or even hot rod road car, you don't need to worry about unsprung weight.
All right, how about Monza? I'm getting some AFR heads to my small block Chevy. Should I put rocker grids? I guess you mean girdles on, or is that wasted money for 5,000 RPM? Probably. Yeah, I mean, rocker girdle becomes important when you've got big lift numbers, when you've got big spring numbers, and big RPM. if you're putting these heads on and you're using, let's say, a street type of spring with like a 500 lift cam, like, in that range, 600 lift cam, and you're only going to spin it to 550, 500 RPM, nah, you're wasting your time. But more than that, yeah, it becomes an issue. Let's see.
New Zealand Mopar Outlaw Customs. Was the poly any good, Kiwi? Don't know yet. It's still in the back of the truck. We haven't got it out yet. We're probably going to have a tinker around with it tomorrow. See, we might try firing it up, at least see if it's got any compression, that kind of thing. And it's got really nice clean oil in it, in the motor and the trans, but the outside of the motor looks pretty scaly. So who knows? It's a lottery, but hopefully it'd be good enough to throw into Marge, and then we'll rebuild her motor, and then she can have her original motor back.
Well, it'll be an interesting endeavor.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's make it a plan to get that motor fired up, and we'll see what we got. Because I know what you're saying. I know where you're coming from. Where it's like, okay, the engine that's in Marge is the one that you want to keep in Marge, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you're talking about engines that are pre-numbers matching or anything like that. And one poly is pretty much interchangeable with another poly. So it just, to my way of thinking, it's like, well, the car runs with the engine that's in it. Hot rod, the one that you just picked up,
right?
And then,
yeah.
Either way, the car comes with two engines.
I guess at the end of the day, what I want to try and achieve is have a car that I can drive. Sure. while a motor's getting built. Because I'm kind of tired of projects that don't go. I want something that actually.
Why can't you drive it the way it is?
That's the other thing.
California.
Yeah. No, I can, but like that's the reason for getting a spare and it's just a matter of how we go around it. Once the motor comes, if I don't have a spare and the motor comes out of Marge, then she's off the road. It's just
I hear you.
Another paperweight in the car park.
Right. All I'm saying is I think we should probably build the spare. Leave the one that's in Marge alone, and let's put the spare together. That doesn't change. Let's get it running and see what we have. But yeah, I would say it would make sense to me. Leave Marge alone just the way she is. Drive it, and then let's build that. Let's build the one you picked up.
Right.
And you plug it in, motor and trans, right in. You said the training fluid looked good on it.
Yeah, it looked great. So yeah.
Mexican spec saying you're emotionally attached to the original engine.
Yeah.
He bothered with it.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's see. Pick one, Kiwi.
Territory, Tony, prepping for my 59 109 Land Rover pickup to play along with you for Project Improbable.
Okay.
It keeps me up at night and putting a plan together for where to attack. 59 109 Land Rover.
Yes, Territory. Yes, that's exactly it. Keeps you up at night putting a plan together. Okay, so like exactly that, because it's I go through this all the time, right? Okay, when you're building a car out of aftermarket parts, it's pretty, it's not really, it doesn't really stretch the imagination, because you're like, okay, I'm going to get a better intake manifold, I'm going to get a better cam, I'm going to get a better this, a better that, right? And the parts are there, right? But when you're building something to like using very restrictive, using the parts that it was born with, it opens up this whole universe of like, now you're thinking, you know what I mean? It's like, right? It's like, it's different. And I had that experience with my Mustang and this is so long ago, but it left that impression in my head because like, I have to make this thing faster. I have to beat my friends, but I can't change anything, right? Please, it's like I gotta explain it to you, man. It's just a whole different trip, and I'm really looking forward to it. I hope that it doesn't take precedence over the other stuff that we're working on, because I have a funny feeling I'm gonna become obsessed with this. I get obsessed with things really easily.
Rust beaters derelicts. Most important part of large Marge restoration. Large or small fuzzy dice to hang from the mirror. Well, there's the trick, because you can't hang dice from the mirror. The mirror's mounted on the dash.
Yeah, very, very old school Mopar, man.
Very old school Mopar, yeah. But I'm sure there would be a way to hang it from the top of the windshield. So yeah. But yeah, fuzzy dice. I think that's a thing. Mexican specs. So now you have 2 engines to build. No, only going to build one. Only going to build one.
Well, now we have the dilemma with that early Hemi.
Yeah.
And that pickup truck in the back.
Yep.
Which I don't want to talk about it too much on this live yet, because it's all still speculation between you, I, and Dr. Art. But like there's a lot to be done. There's a lot of stuff going on right now.
Oh, there's a lot to be done. Oh, yeah.
Okay. New comments.
Rocco wants to know if you're making any trips up north this summer, Tony.
Me?
You?
Furthest north I go is Kentucky. That's it. I'm done with the Northeast. No. Andrew Button saying dash is the correct place for the mirror. Everything else is a mistake. I tend to agree with you. The dash is a really good place for the mirror. I mean, like that on your car, it's like really on the driver's side. Yeah. A lot of them were kind of in the middle, but like your mirror is like it's like right here. It's right exactly in your line of vision.
It's as close to the main dash cluster as it could be.
You really don't ever have to take your eyes off the road to see what's going on in the mirror.
Right.
You know. I wonder where they got away from. Probably safety things.
Yeah, I don't know.
Because if you got somebody sitting in the middle and face plant and you get the mirror through the skull.
The other thing too, in the wagon with the tailgate being a bit high and right at the back,
yeah,
your visibility in the mirror, you tend to see quite a bit of the inside of the tailgate and not that much of what's going out behind you.
So okay, now you have large March.
Yes.
And you have the whiz bang blue thing.
Yeah.
Which do you feel more connected with?
Oh, definitely Marge, yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm an old car guy at heart, but there's yeah.
A new car is a fancy tool. It's a fun appliance, but it's not a car.
No.
Is that kind of right?
Yep, that would be fair to say.
Okay.
Yeah.
And Cold War
doesn't have the character. It's hard to have 70 years character. When you're a year old.
Yes. We talk 50s Mopars and Scott pops in. Cold War Motors. Good evening, gentlemen.
Oh, hey man, how you doing?
Did you find the dash pieces for the 59 Plymouth?
I have not yet. No, I almost had them yesterday, and a guy was selling one, and a 59 wagon, and I kind of asked him about if he was going to part it out, and he was definitely thinking about parting it out, and then someone came along and bought the whole thing. So it's like shit. So it was close, but no cigar. So no, I do still need some stuff, and I will email you back. I'm just between having COVID and trying to catch up at work, and it's like a lot to do.
Zero or Fubar, anybody, could you put up a link to Cold War Motors channel? Great guys over there, absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So yeah, Jamie, you still here? Is Jamie still here? Because he picked up that 69 Charger, which I'm kind of jealous of, because if I found that car locally, I would have bought it. Let's see if he's still in here. Let me get the super chat. Colin L. Thank you, sir. 72 FE360, 56 Fairlane, Heads are being done using what is in spec, like springs and getting Edelbrock RPM intake, 600 Holley 4-barrel, investing what I can before the bottom end. Too much for low compression. So the 72 FE360 is a truck version of the motor. I don't know the cam specs, but if it's different than a passenger car cam, it's going to be a torque type of cam.
Yeah.
Okay. Heads being done using what is in spec, like springs. Okay, so you're rebuilding the heads using stock stuff. Getting an Edelbrock RPM intake. Okay, good choice. 600 Holley, probably small. I think a 750 would be. I mean, if you got the 600, use it, right? But I would say the 600 is going to be small for that motor, because even though it's a small cubic inch engine, it does have pretty generous ports and all. And I'm assuming you're putting a cam on it, so it's going to want to breathe a little bit. Investing when I can before the bottom end. Too much for low compression. No, I think you're going to be fine. A 72, a low compression 360. I mean, check the book. It's a low compression is still going to be like 8.5 to 1. You know, the theoretical 8.5 to 1. I think you're on the right track.
Chris Cadman, if there was a strong south wind, would New Zealand end up on the Australian coast? Well, despite what Uncle Tony would have you believe, New Zealand's not actually a raft.
I didn't say it was a raft. I said that I picture it as a raft.
Oh, I see. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? With grass on everything, like all of the buildings are made of grass. You know, like huts and stuff like that. And there's dolphins like swimming all around, and that's just the way I picture it, right? It's just the way I picture it. And it's probably just, I mean, maybe it's something that like back in the 70s, like maybe I was tripping at some point and like New Zealand came up and this is how I pictured it, but it's stuck in my head now. You see what I'm saying? It's funny like that. So Dead Dog's Garage, she's rough. Yes, I know she's rough. And that's why I'm jealous, because that car is such a blank slate. Like, in other words, like it's too far gone to turn into a nice car. So that means it's going to be a car, right? It's cool. It's a really cool car. I think you need a drag car in your life. I think you need something to just go and just whittle away at the time stuff, man. Whittle away. I would throw the 360 you have in there, because you just stick it right in there, right? And go make laps. I think that car is fantastic. You have a lot of fun with that. If I was to pick up a second generation Charger, that is the exact second generation Charger I would want in that exact condition. So, Rocco, Tony knows that mass production leaves X% on the table as a rule. Lots of horsepower to be found. Absolutely. Especially now when you're talking about computer-controlled cars, OBD cars, right? All of the parameters, the thing is tuned for emissions. It's tuned. You see what I'm saying? Just changing the tune on that thing is probably worth 30 or 40 horsepower. So, and that's Dr. Art's territory, because that's something I never got into. I never learned any of even the basics of it, honestly. So now is my chance to learn this stuff. Dr. Art is an absolute old pro at it. So I'm gonna just follow along and learn and everything. But like I said, the tuning of it, just the tune of it, without changing a single part, is going to make a drastic difference in the performance of it. So.
Joe K, Kiwi, epoxy versus self-etching primer on bare metal. Okay, well, the key difference is both are very adhesive, and we'll stick to bare metal, so they're kind of equal there. The key difference between the epoxy and the self-etching is the self-etching is not waterproof; it's porous. If you get any water on it, any sweating under a car cover, anything like that, any moisture trapped, it will soak through the etching primer, the self-etching primer, and straight into the metal, and it will go rusty in a fairly short amount of time. The epoxy is completely waterproof. It's impervious to water, and you can wash the car with epoxy on it. The one thing, it is a primer, and it won't stand up to sunlight. So if you're going to leave it out over summer in the direct sun, the sun will eat it up because it doesn't have any UV stabilizers. It's not meant to be a top coat. But if you're going to keep it covered or in the shade or in the garage, the epoxy, in my view, is well better than the self-etching because it's not porous. So, yeah, there you go.
That works for me. Let's see. Epoxy primer is basically a sealer, right? Is that?
Yeah.
Let's see. Territory tone. That would be one key advantage you'll have tuning over a carbureted engine. Oh, I know that. I realize that. I like the carburetor for simplicity. The computer does add that extra dimension. There's never been any question that you can get more out of a computer-controlled engine. All right, the 4-liter, I think, the way it's set up, I think, is extremely underutilized. I haven't seen anybody really go into unlocking the tune on these things. Everybody just wants to modify them right off the bat. Just change. Throw the stroke of crank in there and head porting and all kinds of other stuff. But I've never seen anybody actually take one of these later XJs and just put the tune on it and see what happens, or just screw it to tune and see what happens. But I honestly believe this 30 or 40 horsepower just there and not being utilized.
Jay Weiss is asking, Kiwi, would you import any Australian cars? Mate, I'd love to import an Australian car. But honestly, the prices have gone, for the ones I'd like, the prices are so high. And yeah, I would love to have one just because it's a Australian/Kiwi car, and I'm a Kiwi here in the States, so it kind of all fits. To be driving around in the Australian Valiant Charger that just nobody's seen here, it would be awesome, or a Falcon, like an XP Falcon Coupe or something like that. But high dollar cars. I just wish, it's like so many people have the same story. Wish I'd never sold this car, or that car, it's worth so much now, or I wish I'd bought a bunch of them when they were $1,000 each. I mean, there was a time when Valiants, you kind of couldn't give them away in Australia. They were referred to as Italian cars because, like, only the Italians would drive them. And it was, I don't subscribe to that belief, but it was a derogatory kind of.
I wouldn't want anything an Italian drove. No way.
They weren't being nice about it when they said that, but that's just how it was. But I mean, $500 would buy you a charger, no problem. Now, not even a deck lid off a charger.
Fun with cars, saying I started when the industry was just changing over to fuel injection, so I got to learn as the industry changed. I actually started before that. I remember very clearly when the first fuel injection systems, mass-produced fuel injection systems, started to come. The first fuel injection car I remember working on, I didn't do anything fuel injected with it. It was like a brake job. Was a Cosworth Vega, and that had that system that later became the General Motors CCC. But yeah, I did regular work and was on top of the industry as it evolved all the way through the fuel injection years. It was only around 2000, I want to say 2005 or so, about 20 years ago, that I says, I'm rejecting the modern world completely, and I'm going back to carburetors and points, because that's where the happy spot is. That's where the friendly, happy spot. There's no questions. There's no diagnostics. There's no nothing. It's like, does it run? Yeah. If doesn't it run? Oh, I can make it run in 2 minutes. There's just 3 different things that'll, So that was when I told this story. I got to tell a quick story. I told this story before in a video. Here's what changed my mind completely, right? Here's what set me in my ways. I was visiting. I dropped off an engine block at a guy who was building a fuel car. He was building a fuel altered, right? So it was an early Chrysler block. So I dropped it off in his place, and his shop was downstairs from his house. It was vast. It was like just tons of cars and projects and stuff all over the place. And off in the distance, I saw what looked to me to be a train set, like a model train set, because it's a distance, and it looks like there's bridges and like so I'm fascinated by this. So I says, I want to check out your train set, man. He says, what train set? I says, over there. Is not a train set? He says, no, that's the wiring from a 2002, 2006 Charger, whatever year it was, right? This is really, so we walked over to it, and that's what it was. It was it was a 2006. It was all the wiring out of a 2006 Charger, because we were doing a Hemi swap into a Dodge Coronet, okay? So it was all of the wiring, and it was spread out over a ping pong table, and it took up the entire ping pong table. And the harness was like as thicker than my arm, okay? And it just spread everywhere. And devices and things and doodads and then doohickeys and all of the stuff that was in the car, I'm familiar with it. I could work with it. But now it's out. And they're going to take all of this and they're going to stuff it into this Coronet. That's just bad. That's a bad thing to do, I'm saying to myself. So while I'm talking to him and I'm like, wow, that's a lot of work, I got my foot leaning against, I didn't realize what it was. I looked down and it's a 3D3 Chrysler. And it has the original single point distributor in it. And there's one wire coming out of the distributor, the points. And my eye went right to that. And I'm standing there between the two worlds. And there's just this maze of wires and gizmos. And then I look down and there's one wire. And this runs the engine. And I'm like, that's the answer. That's what's real. And from that point forward, I became a committed points and carburetor guy. I just hijacked this whole thing. I'm sorry, Kiwi.
Hey, fine. Go for it, man. I was just going to reach out to Mexican spec. I saw your comment there talking to Danny Boyd. Yes, there were rally cars. There is one for sale here, but I'm not sure if it's a good price or not. There are no comps. What kind of rally car and what kind of money? I follow that stuff fairly closely just because I follow the rallying back in New Zealand and the World Rally Championship. So they're fetching some pretty good money, depending on the rally car. So yeah, let me know what it is. Not that I'm interested for me, but I can probably give you some, reasonably accurate kind of values on
it. 672 Galaxy, I think the acid struck again when the wiring harness looks like a model train set. It's a good possibility.
You've got a point.
It stays in your spine, evidently. Let's see. I think this is something you're probably familiar with, right? Russ Peters Derelicts always had an itch to try stuffing a 289 in an early 70s Ford Capri.
Oh, yeah.
Is that something that you would have done 1,000 times when you were on the raft?
Very easy conversion in a Capri. Yeah, the small block just drops in there like it was made for it. Yeah, very good conversion. Like the car has quite a long nose on it on those early Capris, so you can have the engine like reasonably well back in relation to the front axle. The car doesn't get nose heavy with the V8 in it. Have at it.
They were great looking cars.
Yeah. Yeah, they're one of the better candidates ever for a V8 swap.
Who was this now? 318 Magnum. I heard the tires from a Tesla pollute the air more than an ice because of the weight. All right, well, okay. Yes, Teslas or electric cars, because they're so heavy and they use a special type of tire. So a lot of people don't know this. Electric cars use a special type of tire because they're so quiet that the road noise becomes an issue. So they use special compounds and special construction on the tires so that they minimize the road noise. Okay. So that's the one factor. And then the other factor is that because of the extra weight, they scrub off rubber more. They go through tires quicker. All right. Those are absolute facts. But then you get into the pollution of the air, and it doesn't actually pollute the air. The stuff that comes off the tires on a Tesla or any tire really, or even tire smoke if you do a burnout, okay, is like soot. They're heavy particles that just hit the ground and meld in with the ground. They don't actually go out into the air. So yes, electric cars go through tires. Yes, they shed like crazy, the tires do, but they don't actually pollute the air unless you happen to be breathing the air at, alongside the tire as it's going down the road. Then yes, maybe you can get some pollution that way, but that's a fallacy. Now Barry Kuda is saying, in South Africa, Caprice came with a V8. But which V8? Because the Capri was built in Germany.
In England.
Oh, in England.
In England, yeah. The English ones had a different engine to the European ones, to the German ones.
Okay.
They had like a 2.8 litre V6, and the English ones had a 3 litre V6.
Well, the motors that the Capri may have been made in England, but it used a German engine.
No, not always, no.
The ones that we got here, no?
Ones you got here, quite probably, possibly, yeah. I don't know. I can't speak to the ones you got here.
Okay.
But the English Capris had a 3 litre V6, which was Ford England, and then the European ones had one they called it a Cologne V6, and there was like a 2.8, and the English one was 3 litre, and the 2.8 was actually a better engine. The 3 litre English V6 was not all that. And they also had a 4-cylinder version of that same V6, which was the V4, a 2 litre. It was literally the V6 with 2 cylinders cut off, and it was a 2 litre 4 or a 3 litre 6, and they put them in the Ford Transit vans. Yeah, so which was all English. Yeah, so there's a little
like the electric car thing, right? I would hate to get hit by a little car that weighs like 6,000 pounds. The new Charger. The electric Charger weighs 6,000 pounds.
Wow.
So they make a big deal out of it that its top option is like 670 horsepower. But it's 6,000 pounds. They weigh 6,000 pounds.
Like 2 cars.
I mean, yeah, it's still pretty strong. It's like a 300 horsepower in a 3,000 pound car. It's strong, but man, it's no like, red eye or anything like that.
Yeah. Catch up here. Lost Cadaver learned that Teslas don't have crumple zones either. That's surprising. I would have thought they would have had to.
What was that now?
Lost Cadaver saying that Teslas don't have crumple zones.
You are the crumple zone. Just like on a motorcycle. I am the crumple zone. Boy, that'd be a great T-shirt. Oh, I got to add that to the merch. Okay. Joe K is saying, Tony, I thought the Ford Explorer V6 story was one convinced you not to deal with modern vehicles anymore. No, that's what got me out of the repair business. That's what got me away from fixing cars. That was the end of that. But as far as like my dedication to like throwback, the caveman stuff, that comes from that. There were many experiences, but that one in particular stood out as one of those like moments of that or that. I'll take that.
Lost Cadaver saying they can't have the crumple zones because of the batteries, the battery reinforcement. But the crumple zone, like on the front, is all forward of the firewall. Yeah, the cab, the batteries are typically on the floor of the cab, and the cab is not. The whole idea with crumple zones is the cab doesn't deform. So I'm not quite sure. Then someone else just chimed in and said that the Cybertruck, the Tesla Cybertruck, doesn't have crumple zones. That I could possibly believe because often the commercial vehicles don't have to meet the same safety standards.
Could you imagine getting hit by that thing?
Crumple zones P sitting down. Clean Nickerson. There you go.
One of the last things I saw, I've been trying to stay away from the whole EV thing lately because I just don't want it in my head, right?
Right.
I like to make my own reality. So I've been staying away from the whole EV thing. But one of the things I saw recently was that now there's an issue with guardrails. So evidently, somebody had crashed a Rivian, and it went right through an arm coat like it didn't even exist, because all of the guardrails are constructed to hold back 5,000-pound vehicles. That's their thing. Now they understand that semis and shit weigh a lot more than that, but they're not intended to hold back a semi. When a semi hits it, they know a semi is going to go over the thing. You need a 5-foot high barrier for that, right? But the arm coats are intended to hold back a 5,000-pound vehicle and less at highway speed, which is like 70 miles an hour. That's one of the reasons why how they set speed limits. What is the capability of the barriers on the side of the road? So at any rate, somebody hit a Rivian, which weighs like 8,000 pounds, 7,000 pounds, hit one of these arm coats and went through it like it didn't even exist. So now they're talking about, with all of these electric cars, and all of them weighing more than 5,000 pounds, all these electric cars are going to have to redo all of the guardrails in the country. So it's just, this is one crazy freaking thing after another.
Lost cadaver. The battery reinforcement extends into the front, or the front trunk. No, I have to believe you. I really don't know otherwise. So yeah, I just don't know. I mean, I'd like to think that's not the case, but maybe it is. And Zero's commenting there, and he works on these things. The Tesla is basically a roll cage. The rigid structure for the torque of the motor mounting makes sense. Why no crumple?
Okay. But there's no consideration given to. All right, so the crumple zone, in addition to absorbing energy in the vehicle that's you're in, okay, that has the crumple zone, it also reduces the amount of energy transferred to whatever it is that you're hitting. So it's like, you know what I mean? It's like, how do they allow this out into the world? I think this is like the podcast is going to go in these directions.
Yeah. I watched a video from that M guy, and he was because obviously E thing but electric cars that's all he hears about, and I thought he had a really good point. They were showing a charging station, and they had like 9 of these super fast chargers.
Yeah.
And the problem was it was BS, because if you had 9 cars hooked up, there was no way they could get the power, the juice down the line to charge them all at the rapid rate, because there's just not big enough cable to send the power to that many cars at the same time.
Right.
So you pull up with your 8 other people to fast charge, and 3 hours later it's still charging up.
It's a scam. The whole electric car thing is the greatest scam ever. The U.S. dollar is the greatest scam ever perpetrated on the world, but the electric car thing is the greatest industrial scam ever perpetrated on the planet. It can't work, and the people who are insisting that it do work know that it can't work. There are other things. There are other factors involved in this. Until we get our podcast going, Jeff buys cars. He does a lot of videos. He's onto it. See, he figured it out. I've known it all along, but he's the guy who's figured it out, and he's been talking about it. So
right.
Well, anyway, Carpenter 78. What is your opinion on dynamic compression when trying to run high compression street engine? All right, that's an impossible question to answer, because dynamic compression. So compression ratio of an engine, it can be figured 2 ways. You've got your static compression ratio, and you got your dynamic compression ratio. So the static compression ratio is all of the factors. Okay, so it's the bore, the stroke, the CC of the combustion chambers, the type of piston. Okay, that's the factors. Okay, and that's fixed. That's a fixed number. The dynamic compression ratio is what you actually end up with depending on the camshaft profile, because static compression ratio doesn't take that into account. Static compression ratio doesn't take into the actual running of the engine and the cycling of everything. So that's the difference between static compression and dynamic compression. So I know that's not answering your question, but I'm trying to explain to you why your question is not answerable. Does that make any sense?
Lost Cadaver. Edison Motors is doing cool shit. He is actually. He's a guy I follow on YouTube. And have you seen him?
Yes, Tony? I have.
Yeah. I just, he's a likable guy. And what he's trying to do is I'm like, good for you, man. Like, I think he's onto something. And he's a hardcore old school trucker. Like, he loves old trucks,
Right.
And, yeah.
No, I've seen it. It's cool. It's innovative.
Yeah.
What he's doing.
Yeah. And I mean, he's putting his balls on the line too. He's just like, he's investing a lot of money and, hoping that it's going to work. And I hope it does.
Okay. This is definitely a question for you, bro.
Yeah.
Richard Stanberry. Yeah. When putting different engines and trains and subframes in cars, Frankensteining, what is the rule of figuring geometry of pedals and steering? Is there a rule?
The pedals and steering. Okay. Well, the pedals is really just a comfort thing. If that's what you're asking. The steering.
I think he's when he's saying geometry. See, when he's talking about pedal geometry, I think about ratios. But I think what he actually is referred to is pedal placement in terms of like the seat, the steering, how everything. You got to piece this whole car together, right?
Yeah.
How do you find that zone where the pedals, the steering, the seats, the windshield, the top of it? How do you find that zone where everything is going to be ergonomically usable?
Right.
Because I've driven a bunch of like pieced together cars over the years, and it's like, what were they thinking with it? The steering wheel's off like this, the pedals are like this, the doghouse comes in like this. It's like, so how do you?
Trying to think of a way of explaining it. Really, a lot of it is just doing it. I mean, just making sure it's comfortable and not just doing it the easiest way. Typically, the easiest way is very, very rarely the best way. Very rarely. And, sometimes things just drop together and it's nice, but it really doesn't happen that often. But yeah, you just have to put the time in to make the stuff feel good and put a seat in it and sit your butt in there and make sure it's going to feel right.
I've told this story 1,000 times. I'll dig out a picture. I'm going to dig out a picture in a second. When I built my first fuel altered at the house in New York, right? And I started with a what the hell was it? It was a Jamie Sarté chassis, but nothing was legal. Okay, nothing was up to date. It was a chassis that had been built in like the middle 70s. So this is like 1991, 1992. So the specs had changed, and there was no way that I could get this chassis certified. So basically, all I had from the original chassis was like the front steering, the spindles and stuff like that, and some random tubing. So I actually had to rebuild this whole car. So while I was doing it, I had to build the whole cockpit section. So while I was doing it, I kept getting in the car, right, to make sure that everything fit right, so everything was just right. So I wanted that low, bad ass profile. Okay. So I kept making everything low, scooting things down, and like, okay, I'll make this fit here. And so where I ended up putting the roll bar, or I ended up sitting in the seat and everything, I was like really laying down, okay? And I had it to where the roll bar was like right here. I said, oh, this is good. So I tried it on 1,000 times as I was putting it together. Now I take it to the track for the first time. And keep in mind, I had never driven a fuel car in my life. This was the first time I was going to drive one, right? So Now I get it to the shop, and I put my fire suit on, and I put my breather mask on, and I pull my helmet over my head, and I go to get in the car, and I don't fit in the car. I can't even get into the seat with the way I have the roll cage. Duh! I built this car and tried it on just without any of the gear, so I didn't fit, and I ended up giving myself some brain damage, which was.
Well, that and the fact that you used to be 6'4", and now you're not.
While you answer a question, I'll go grab a picture of it so you can see the idiocy of what I'm talking about here. Bill McKeiska, thank you for the super chat, Bill. What are your opinions on using the best stock parts for an engine for performance by mix and matching different year parts? Is it worth the hunt or better to pay for superior aftermarket parts? Superior in what way? Okay, because it depends on what you're trying to do. So, all right, production parts are generally over-engineered for their purpose. Some production parts are way over-engineered for their purpose. So if you go back to the classic era engines that we deal with, like his polys, okay, the bottom end on his poly, essentially the connecting rods, the crank material, all of that stuff is a very close cousin to the Chrysler Hemi. They were built, that all this stuff was cast in the same foundries by the same people with the same metallurgy, right? So keep that in mind. His poly is capable, the bottom end of it, and this is proven to be good to hold 2,000 horsepower, because that's what they were able to get out of the early Chrysler Hemis. So at that point, everything on his engine, if he makes 500 horsepower, if he makes 1,000 horsepower, it's still over-engineered from the factory, from then what he's going to put it to use for. So when you say superior aftermarket parts, they're superior in what way specifically, right? What are you going to try to make this engine do that's beyond its original capabilities? And again, you see every engine is a little bit different. Every operating circumstance is a little bit different. So it's a case by case. But generally speaking, for the type of cars that we collectively build, the type of stuff, which is going to be in between let's say 300 and 500, maybe 600, pushing it horsepower, I can't think of any normal production engines, Chevy, Ford, Chrysler, AMC. I can't think of any production engines that are not capable of that with the best of the factory production parts. I hope I answered that question, or I ran off on a tangent. I don't even know. Did that make any sense, Kiwi?
Yeah, it did. Absolutely, it did.
Okay.
Blaze Urati, is there anything more difficult about putting a 390 FE in a 67 Mustang versus a small block? I mean, it's tighter. There's less room for sure. But it's not a hard swap if you've got the Mustang front suspension. If you've got, I'm doing my second one now, where we've gone with the FE, the 427 FE, which is the same thing really, with a Heights or a TCI front suspension, that makes it a lot harder, because just trying to make it fit around the crossmember and rack is very hard. But I'm assuming that's not what you're doing. You're just trying to put it into a regular 67. Yeah, they will go in there. There's certainly not a lot of room for the manifolds and getting the spark plugs and stuff like that. But other than that, it's a pretty straightforward swap.
All right. So here's the car that I was just talking about. That's the one I built in my garage at home. Right? It's like the fuel tank and the front steering and all of that. That's all from the original car. But you can see the back half of it. You see how low it is, right? I wanted that profile. I wanted it to look like that, right? And that's the pass that I actually did brain damage to myself. That's the pass I hurt my brain. Okay. So, but anyway, you can see how low the roll cage is, right? How tight that whole thing is. It's a good looking car, yeah. And this is just to give you an idea. This is how we fit in the car. So you see the where my helmet is above the roll cage.
Yeah.
And notice there's no padding on the roll cage. because I could not get in there with any panic.
Well, did it hurt to drive? Like, did it
Yes,
beat you in
it
the...
hurt to drive. I,
Oh, good Lord.
as soon as I hit the throttle, I had no vision. I had worked on the cars for years at that point, but I had never driven one. So I didn't know what was normal and what wasn't. I was like, well, I guess you go blind when you hit the gas.
You thought that's what everyone had to deal with.
But yeah, that's a low rider car if there ever was one.
Yeah.
I ended up I pulled my drivetrain out of that. I pulled my Hemi out of that, and I sold that car to a bracket racer, and then I bought an old Pluger chassis that was originally Bobby Pickett's, and then Bobby Lagana had it, and I bought that, and I stuck my drivetrain in it, and that's the car that I ran towards the end. So, yeah, painful memories. Anthony Perna, thank you for the super chat. Tony Huey, how do I properly set the secondary opening on my Holly? I'm sucking too much air and can't set my idles. Is there an adjustment spec? Let me try to read that again.
An old school Holly?
How do I properly set the secondary opening on my Holly? Okay. So, you're sucking too much air and can't set my idle. Is there an adjustment spec? So, all right. You're not specifying what kind of Holly it is. If it's a vacuum secondary Holly, there's a throttle stop. If you take the carburetor upside down, right, you see there's a little tiny screw buried in like a squarish box, right, off to the side, and that's the throttle stop for the secondaries. And the only reason that exists is so that the secondary blades don't close completely, because if they close completely, what will happen is they'll stick in the aluminum bore. So you have that throttle stop that's there, and that's the only purpose of it, is just to keep the throttle blades from going all the way flat closed. So you're going to pull a little tiny bit of air through there. If you're trying to get more air into the engine, you can open them up a little bit. So in other words, if you're trying to raise the idle without opening the primary blades so that you uncover too much of the transfer slot, you can open the secondaries a tiny bit and get some air in through there, but not too much, right? And that's where you get into the point where you start drilling holes. But you seem to have the opposite problem. You're sucking too much air and can't set your idle. So I don't know. You want to take a shot at that? Oh, wait, here. There's more to it. Okay. It's a brand new 390 CFM Holly vacuum secondary. Truck is idling at 1100 RPM. I went looking for vacuum leaks. Everything is good, but with the choke screw and the idle screw out, it won't idle down. All right, so pop that carburetor off and take a look at the secondary throttle blades. The secondary throttle blades, you really shouldn't see any type of opening, right? If you can see air, or if you can see light, right, of any significance with the throttle closed, then they're open too far. So you can back off that screw. You have to use a little tiny screwdriver to get in there and just turn it out a little bit and drop down.
You usually can't get to them with the carburetor bolted to the manifold, can you?
No, you can't. Oh, well, okay. Like, so if you have like a really small bit, right, like a flathead screwdriver bit, you can sometimes put it up next to the carburetor and use a 1/4-inch open end wrench to turn it, right? But if he's not familiar with it, the easiest way to do it is just flip it upside down and take a look for that.
Yeah, that adjustment wasn't put there to be adjusted very often.
Right. Yeah, it's just a set screw to keep the blades from burying themselves into the
working their way in and never ever opening.
Right, they were never open.
But yeah, that's a fairly high. Went looking for I mean, there could well be a vacuum leak there somewhere.
Yeah, he put a rag over the secondaries on the truck idle down to like 500 RPM. Yeah, it's probably. I mean, so listen, sometimes during the assembly process, they goof a little bit. So that's probably all it is.
That's certainly, doing that rag over the secondaries, that certainly tells you where the issue is. So, if it's not the blades open too far, then you've got a vacuum leak right in that area. Would that be pulling vacuum? No, that would choking the barrel. I was thinking, could it be coming from the brake booster or something like that? But putting a rag over the secondaries wouldn't have affected that.
No.
So you scratch that. Yeah. Unless there's, an issue with the gasket, the carburetor base gasket that's pulling some air in through there. But again, yeah, the rag over the secondaries wouldn't have pulled it down either. So yeah, it really does sound like it's those blades are too far open.
Okay, I'm just going back here. Okay. Tab comments. I thought I saw something I wanted to respond to, but I can't find it. Kiwi, do you know what a hunting gear set is? Betting Tony does, since it's a Mopar thing. You might too. I don't know what it is.
You know what a hunting gear set is?
If it's a Mopar thing, you may want to. Jamie might know what it is, but I don't.
Hunting gear set. Hunting gear set. That's like I would have said that's your wet weather gear and your high vis vest for when you're out hunting. Yeah.
Yeah, that would work for me.
No, I don't
know. Okay, Zero saying Brennan H has a good question. Thank you, Zero. I will find Brennan. Oh, okay. Brennan Hart. Okay. Tony, what kind of ignition curve, RPM degrees, etc., should I set up on my stock 318 LA with a 4-barrel and a 4,000-pound half-ton truck with a 727 stock converter and a 294 gear? Okay. Let me think about this for a second. The ignition curve, RPM degrees, etc., should I set up on my stock 318? Okay, stock 318 with a 4-barrel. Okay, you need as much advance as you can get. Okay, so 30. You want total advance, 34 degrees total. Now I'm not talking about vacuum, not vacuum advance, just mechanical advance. You want approximately 34 degrees total, and for that thing to really be snappy, you want it in right off idle. Okay, so you want just enough of a curve built in there so that the truck starts easily when it's hot. So if you can limit the total advance to around between like 18 and 20 degrees. So subtract 20 degrees, just to talk around numbers, from 34, 14 initial. So you want to set it at 14 degrees initial. And you want the lightest spring you can get, because you only want that 14 degrees to start. Once the engine is running, you can go right to that 34, and that's where she would be the happiest. So, and I'm just making a ballpark recommendation to you. But you want as much advance in there as quickly as you can get it, and it'll be very snappy. That's the biggest problem with the 318s. They like a lot of advance. They need a lot of low compression motor. Needs a lot of advance to actually feel snappy. And then you throw the 4-barrel on it, and it's like, So that's about right.
So Bill McCoskers, that's a serious super chat. We're going to have to give him a good answer on that one, Tony.
Oh my God, Bill, what are you doing to me? Thank you, sir. For superior performance for a small block Mopar and a work truck, I need more grunt than the stock 318 2-barrel can give. Are something like aftermarket heads, intake and headers, etc., worth the money versus trying to hunt down and acquire the best factory stuff? Okay. All right. So this is a work truck, right? And you want it to make work truck performance. So you're talking about all bottom end. You're talking about you only care what this thing is going to run. Let's say 2,500 to like 4,000 RPM is the range that you're going to be operating in. There are no aftermarket heads that will do you any good in that area. Just take that right off the table. Zero options for aftermarket heads for that application. Your best head is going to be if you can't find a set of 67 318 heads, the closed chamber 273 318 heads, those are the ones I have on Bottle Rocket currently. If you can't find a set of those, then a set of the 302, the closed chamber 302 heads. 86 and 86 and is it 85 or 86 and up, but the 302 casting 318 head is the head to use for that. Long tube header, yeah, absolutely. And you need an RV cam. You need a cam that's specifically designed for that. So what I would do, Bill, I would get a hold of Shane Polito, right? He's an engineer over at TCI. He designs camshafts and all that other stuff. And I would get a hold of him and let him make you a very accurate recommendation, because all I can do is guess at what grind, what part number, or anything like that. But Shane can point you in the direction of an actual cam. And I tell you what, I didn't even think of this. Right? It's 8:30 right now. Shane does a live every Wednesday night, opposite hours. Okay, you can go over there now. It's called Slant Daily Garage. Okay. And tell him I sent you over there and ask him that question, and he'll probably be able to spit out a number for you just like that. Thank you for the very generous super chat, Billy. I hope I was able to point you in the right direction.
So, I mean, here's a thought, Tony. Like, I mean, he's obviously he's prepared to spend a bit of money. He's talking about buying heads, intake, headers, 4 barrels, all that. Why not go to a 360?
I don't know. Probably he doesn't want to deal with the external balance motor. He doesn't want to deal with because you have to change the torque converter. You'd have to change the damper. I don't know. I mean, yeah, 360 would be the obvious thing to do. And if you're really looking at a bottomless pit of cash of 4-inch stroke or a 4-inch crank in that 318 block, you end up with a 380-inch motor.
You can buy like a 4-inch stroker kit for like $1,600.
Yeah.
Well, a good set of heads is going to cost you that.
No, the heads I'm recommending to him are really the junkyard heads you can get them for.
Well, okay. I mean, aftermarket. Okay, I'll rephrase that. Aftermarket heads, for some.
But you see, there are no aftermarket heads that are intended to work on there.
Yeah, no, you're right.
They've all got bigger ports, bigger valves, and everything, and he needs small ports and small valves to keep them.
Yeah, no, I'm not pushing the aftermarket head, but I'm like, if he's obviously considering the aftermarket head, so he's got a little bit of coin to spend. If he was looking at a set of aftermarket heads for $1,600, I would think the stroker kit would be better bang, more bang for his buck than the aftermarket.
I agree with you. I agree with you, but the way he's phrasing it, it's like he wants bolt-ons around. He wants so he wants to keep a block in the truck, and he wants to work around it based on what you're saying is right. Yeah, 360 automatically would be the choice, but for whatever reason he doesn't want that. And if you are going to work with 318, a 4-inch stroker crank is absolutely the way to go.
The torque must jump considerably with that 4-inch stroker kit.
Yes. Well, leverage. Look at the leverage you're picking up.
Yeah.
Now you do the 4-inch stroker, and you leave small port, small valve heads on top of it. And going back to that, Bill, the SP2P intake manifold, if you can find one of those, that is a torque thing. Okay, I've got one on the 360 that's in my Swinger. So it's the more that intake manifold is done at 5,000 RPM. Like it won't spin. That engine won't go 5,001 RPM. Okay, so it's done. But the mid-range, the low and mid-range torque, because it's got these really, really small runners. Okay, they're long and they're small diameter, and they tune at about 3,000 RPM, like 2,500, 3,000 RPM, and it just pukes torque. It's amazing. Like I chose that manifold for that combination because I was mostly concerned with its highway performance. 50 to 70 miles an hour, and at 50 to 70 miles an hour, like you'd think it was a healthy 440. When you lean into it, like passing and stuff like that. So that would be the manifold I would recommend for the application that you're working on over there. It sucks in every other way. Like literally, it sucks in every other way. But for that, it's perfect.
Territory, Tony Kiwi. Any tips on removing sound deadening from a '66 Volkswagen Beetle? Well, apparently the latest hot ticket is dry ice.
Dry ice.
Get a bunch of that and like really get the panels frozen and the stuff chips off like broken plates. You know.
I've never used it. People recommend it to me all the time. I've never used it.
I mean, it's not like you just go down to like your local Kroger's and buy a big bag full of dry ice. It's not like super readily available. But yeah, that's what I've seen a few shorts and that sort of thing doing that, and it kind of makes sense. I mean, I always used to heat it and scrape it off, but oh god, that's a dirty, messy, laborious, boring job. But yeah, that is a way of doing it.
Okay. By the way, back to that torque thing.
Yeah,
you definitely want to use like a quadrajet. The thermal quads are a little finicky and hard to deal with, but a quadrajet would be the choice carburetor for that. And the SP2P has a quadrajet bolt pattern. So it's just bolt it right off. I gotta sneeze. Or maybe not.
Chris Cadman, dry ice is good in a bourbon.
Yeah, it didn't come out. Heat gun and a putty knife. Yep, that's I use a torch. I use a torch in there.
Heat gun and a putty knife. Yep. Hey Tarbo, how you doing, man? I just saw that little thing you posted up there about your old man's Dormobile. Man, I haven't heard that word Dormobile for decades.
I don't even know what that is.
It's like an old English camper van.
Okay.
I don't know. Loosely speaking, you could say it's a bit like one of the old Falcon vans, but kitted out as a camper. And I think they had a pop-up roof on them, but I'm not sure about that. So long ago, I remember being as a kid hearing my old man talk about apparently him and my dad and my mum went like a tour around Europe in a Dormobile. Yeah, but minuscule compared to the American campers, like just tiny. Anyway, it was just like it was fun seeing that name again after so many years.
So Andrew Button is saying on diesel, it's a sneeze. It won't stop. It won't come out. It won't stop. Diesel remove undercoating, cheapest option. Yeah, you gotta let it soak. Let it soak. But diesel or kerosene, anything like that, you just keep brushing it on. Just keep brushing it on, and then you can just really wipe it off.
Huh.
Some guys use grape
I'm
fluid.
trying to get. Sorry, go on, Tony.
What was that?
We were talking over each other. What'd you say?
No, I'm saying I've seen people use brake fluid for that also. Brake fluid breaks it down, but then you've got if you're not going to completely treat the metal afterwards, then the brake fluid, no paint will stick to it and it'll rust the metal.
I'm actually right now trying to clean out the fuel tank in large Marge.
And,
I think it got parked with half a tank of gas in it, which is now reduced down to about a half-inch layer of dinosaur material, which smells bad. And I got a reasonable amount out of it with acetone. Now I chucked half a gallon of paint stripper in it and left it overnight. I'm going to see what that does. But this gooey tar stuff is, the bottom of the tank isn't rusty, and it's mainly due to this half-inch layer of tar in the bottom of it.
It protected it.
It protected it, but man, trying to get it out again. And gasoline, like the acetone had kind of finished doing its thing, and I poured that out, and then I didn't have any more, so I poured a bit of regular gasoline, and that was really hardly even touching it.
You got to stir around somehow.
Yeah, well, even doing that, all it did was just discolor the fuel, the gasoline slightly, but didn't affect the tar at all. But the paint stripper appears to be like tearing into it pretty well. So it'll be interesting to see what that looks like in the morning. Yeah, but yeah, it's taking a little bit of getting rid of. But yeah, the good news is it's not got holes in the bottom of it. So there you go.
New Zealand Outlaw, Mopar Outlaw Custom says, I tried a vapor rust on a tank and it didn't do shit. I did too. I did it in a motorcycle tank, and I was very disappointed with the results. Yes, Chris Freemaster is saying exactly what I was thinking. Maybe put a bunch of steel nuts in the tank and shake it up with the chemicals and break things up. That's the old school way.
The best ones to put in, I've found, I've done that before, and like the Mustang, I've got so many leftover Ford, Mustang and bolts, and the ones with that star-shaped washer that was built onto the back of them.
Yeah.
Like about 16 little points on it.
Yeah.
They're the best. Put 10 pounds of those in the fuel tank and rattle them around. It looks like it's been shot blasted. But I know someone who has quite a few of those bolts kicking around his workshop, so it's quite handy. Light a match to clean it out. Yeah. That's a funny story. I was, reminds me of a funny story. I was adding a fuel outlet to a fuel tank in a rally car that I was prepping. And so we wanted a larger diameter outlet into the tank. So here I am. I put the tank over the exhaust pipe for 20 minutes and let the exhaust, the engine running, and the carbon monoxide is supposed to push out the gas fumes. So I did all that, and I had it on the bench, and I'm just getting ready to braze or bronze this little fitting into the tank. So I'm just get there and point the torch at it, just on low, and next thing is this almighty, and I'm steering like I'm like 8 inches away from where I'm about to try and bronze in, and there's this almighty bang, and I kind of couldn't help but blink, and the fuel tank was gone. It wasn't there. It was, and I'm like, what the hell? It was gone. Like, and I'm looking, so I started casting my field of view further, and it was on the far right-hand side of it, quite a good-sized workshop, like hit the wall.
Nice.
And because there was still gasoline fumes in it, and it all jetted out the filler neck, which was right on the far end, the far left end. And it left so fast. I mean, I was staring at it and I didn't see it leave. It just like exit stage right. And I just never saw it leave. And after that, it held about an extra 3 gallons of fuel.
All right. Yeah. So Jeff Hutchins saying, Tony, hunting gear set. Want to know what it is? Yes. No, just spit it out. What is it? Zen Khan. Any tips on waking up a detuned LT1 motor in my Cadillac hearse? Oh, no, I actually don't. Do you, Kiwi?
No.
How do you up-tune an LT1? I don't know.
Detuned LT1. Well, what did they do to detune it? Was that just decompressed, or?
I mean, I have no idea.
No.
I have no idea. I mean, I believe it's all going to be in the computer.
Yeah.
Get somebody who can tune it.
It's probably drowning in smog equipment too, which might get rid of that might help.
Yeah, I don't really. I mean, what would be on there really is the EGR valve, an air pump. Yeah, I find a tuner.
Carvo Kiwi rocket powered tank. Yeah, that was pretty much it.
Okay. All right. I'm still posted it. Jeff Hutchins posted it 3 or 4 times. Jeff. Okay. I'm going to go back and find. It's the reason for the weird gear ratios. Okay. I'm going back, Jeff. I'm scrolling. You can take one, Kiwi, and I'm going to try to find his answer.
Rocco, Tony, dry graphite for a noisy speedo cable. Just a bit of regular light oil. It really, graphite would probably work.
Yeah, I think graphite would be the choice thing.
You think so?
Yeah.
Okay. I use a lot of graphite powder on windows, like wind-up windows or electric windows. Windows that go up and down. I've seen a lot of people like spray silicon spray on the window channels. That's a bad idea. That's where I use graphite powder, but I've never thought of putting it in a speedo cable.
I'm looking. Okay, wait here. Jeff Hutchins, hunting gear set. Ring and pinion ratios are set up so that the gears never run the same pattern on each other. The ring gear hunts on the pattern so that the gears wear more evenly. The ring gear hunts on the pinion. Okay, I'm lost on this now because I'm trying to picture.
I don't understand that one either. Ring
and pinion ratios are set up so the gears never run the same pattern on each other. The ring gear hunts on the pinion. How's the ring gear move so that the gears wear more evenly? Dude, I must be missing something because both the ring gear and I'm picturing like an 8 3/4, and the ring gear and the pinion gear have fixed relationships to each other. I mean, maybe I'm missing something.
Yeah, I don't follow that one. Jason Fitch said Kiwi is a bogan rocket scientist. Yeah. Who knows what a bogan is? That's not a term you use here, is it?
No, but I'm thinking you could have sent that raft right into orbit with that, man. You could have.
Yeah. I think I might have moved it about 2 feet to the left. The whole raft.
Lithium grease doesn't last that long, man. Anthony P is saying spray lithium grease on a speedo cable to stop from jumping around. I did on my old Valiant many times. Yeah, but you have to keep doing it over and over again. Lithium grease likes to gather and kind of like congeal.
All right.
In like when it's in constant motion.
Terrence Seymour, I did that with an Escort fuel tank and it turned into a perfect ball. Yeah, well, they're a fairly round tank anyway, aren't they? Well, I mean, not rectangular, you
know. Kiwi, are you familiar with Angus Fogg's 70 Mustang race car?
Yes, I am. I know Angus. Well, I don't know him, but I know of Angus Fogg. Very good steerer. Good driver. Steerer, like steering. Good steerer.
He's known for his steering?
Well, that's what a good driver is. He's a good steerer.
Oh, okay. That
another way of saying a good driver.
Yeah, slang.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Kiwiism, maybe. Yeah.
That's right. Here in the States, we used to call them shoes.
Shoes?
Shoes. A good driver was called a shoe.
Oh, okay. From using the shoe on the gas pedal, and brake pedal. Okay.
That's from the 60s.
Kiwi, my caddy sat for as long as Marge. I used 5 gallons of Zep degreaser, let it soak for an hour, then cut 2-foot pieces of small chain, sloshed it with my dad. It eats the gun. Okay. Yeah, I've certainly put nuts and bolts in before, but not chain. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess just something rattling around in there really is the key thing, just to knock off that scale. The other trick, which there's very little rust scale in Marge's tank, but a good trick is to go to your local hardware store and buy a bunch of little magnets and throw them in the tank. Just drop them inside the tank and leave them, and the little bits of rust scale that will inevitably continue to rain down in the tank will get attracted to the magnet and stay there. All right, Jeff Hutchins. Tony's had an epiphany.
Yes, brilliant. I never I never put that together. Thank you for that. Thank you for that. Jeff, seriously. Okay. I never knew that. I never put that together. But yes. Okay, so here's the answer to the hunting gear ratios. Certain normal gear ratios, like 410, 411, and so the pinion always runs on the same teeth on the ring gear as it goes around. The same pinion teeth mesh with the same ring gear teeth every time around. I gotcha. So that's how. I gotcha. So they chose ratios so that those teeth are always in rotation. They never hit the same. Brilliant. And that's, see, you find Mopar trivia or even just engineering trivia like that. Like,
yeah,
that's awesome. That's awesome. I never knew that. Never put that together. Never knew that. Thank you, Jeff. That's freaking awesome. I feel like I should send you a super chat.
Josh Homan, I've used vinegar on rusty stuff. Yeah, vinegar, like white vinegar, is that has a ton of uses, man.
Very cool that drag racers don't know about steering.
Well, this is true.
That is not true at all. That's not true at all. That's bullshit. Okay. No, seriously, right? How do you think we get from the staging lanes to the burnout area? All right.
Well,
and after that, how the hell do you think we get back to the pits? And when we get back to the pits, how do you think we get back to our pit? Dude, there's steering going on all the time.
Yeah, and then there's getting from the pits to the bar after the race.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah. So
yeah, no, steering is very, very important in drag racing.
Rick Campbell, fill the tank with water and then weld it old school. Yeah, I've heard of doing that, like displacing the fumes with water. When I was young, there was an older mechanic. He said, if you're ever going to weld on a fuel tank, make sure it's full of fuel. And I'm like, what? Why? And he said, well, if you're going to go, you might as well go with a big bang.
Jeff, I'll take your super shirt. Jeff, send Kathy an email, uncletony'sgarage@gmail.com, and put in there, give me a shirt, okay, in the subject matter. We'll get you whichever shirt you want. Make sure you put your size in there. Thank you. That's great. I never knew that. That's awesome. This is the kind of freaking geek that I am. It's little stuff like that just. You made my whole week with that.
So based on that theory, if you've got a 411 gears, then they will always just continue. There's not a way around that on that particular gear set.
I imagine so. Like, this is a new concept to me, so I haven't really put it into work. But it does make sense in that there are odd numbered ratios. 321, right? With the 8 1/4.
But I guess it would also have to do with the number of how they come to the ratio and how many teeth on the pinion versus how many teeth on the ring gear.
Well, yeah, obviously. Okay, so that would be the set ratio. But with some ratios, the relationship puts the teeth on the ring gear always with the same teeth on the pinion.
Yeah.
But a different ratio would have that relationship change, so they're always riding on different teeth.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's probably why some of the gear ratios, okay, so like for instance, here's an example. A Dana 60 has a 354 ratio.
Yeah.
Okay? But the Chrysler version of that, right, in the 8 3/4 is a 355 ratio. So does the 354 in the Dana always put the pinion gear to the same teeth on the ring gear, or does the 355, that one number off, does that make sure that they're always in a different relationship?
Yeah, you have to do a bit of math on that.
You have to do the math on it, but it makes perfect sense. I get it. I get it. I get it. Let's see. Pick one, bro.
Brian Power, Kiwi, try the redneck ultrasonic cleaner method on that tank. Fill it with the solvent of your choice and tape an electric orbital sander to the bottom of it with the tank suspended with no sanding disc. Okay, just let it vibrate. Yeah, that sounds like a redneck ultrasonic cleaner, yeah. Oh, good Lord.
Mid-main muscle. Most drag chassis are more advanced than some road race cars. That is an absolute truth. Now, it's a shame you only get used in a straight line for a few seconds. Why? That's their purpose. Drag racing suspension, drag racing chassis and suspension is such an insanely complex thing. Every single type of car has a different, okay, so every type of car, every class of car, every level of performance has its own very specific, very specialized science, right? It's insane. Like you can write several books on drag racing chassis science to cover all of the different, like, okay. And okay, I'm not exaggerating here. I'm doing this channel there for almost 5.5 years. Okay, and I've got about 1,000 videos up, maybe a few more. Okay, talking about drag racing, only drag racing suspension, I could probably have done every one of the videos I did in other topics. Could have covered a different topic or a different segment just on drag racing suspensions, because a stock eliminator car. You take all the different variations, right? Low horsepower stock eliminator car, high horsepower stock eliminator car, leaf spring car, symmetrical leaf spring, non-symmetrical leaf spring. Is it a coil spring car, trailing arm geometry? And you can break it down to like every, like right on down the line, and then you get into the contradictions where it's like at 1 horsepower level you want the car to rise, at another horsepower level you want the car to squat. At another horsepower level, you want it to rise again. Another horsepower level, you want it to stay put and let the tire do the rising. There is so much to it. It's absolutely mind-boggling compared to other types of racing. It's just the variety is off the chain.
Yeah, new comments. Click the blue button. Rocco wants to know how long before you build a rail out of that 2-door XJ.
I'm going to keep it looking and functioning as stock. Right, but no, nothing's off limits as far as like the modifications I can make to the parts that are in there. And I will promise you, I will go faster with that thing than you could ever possibly imagine. Because I already see its limitations. I already see the things I'm going to change. It will go faster than you can imagine using the stock parts.
What's on to be? Have you guys seen those lasers that remove rust? How safe or not? Okay, those things really do work, but they're also really expensive. There's some cheap ones that you see like on Facebook Marketplace and things like that, for a few $100s. They don't work worth a shit. You're like starting north of 10 grand for a decent one of those laser rust removers. Safety wise, as far as I know, it is just eye protection, and that's it. There's really no very, very non-toxic. There's no runoff. There's no nastiness. Pretty much vaporizes. The oxidization. Great thing, but just few people can actually afford them.
Is there any danger in pointing the laser at your tongue?
I don't know. Depends whether your tongue's rusty or not, I guess.
Well, let's assume it's not.
I have no idea. I don't know.
Let's see. Bruce W. Bruce, what's happening, man? I have not been here for ages. You haven't. You were around all the time. You were like a regular, and then you kind of disappeared. When you had like 200,000 subs. What is Dallas up to these days? I have no clue. Has Kiwi taken over for Tech Night? Kiwi and I have been doing Tech Night together for over a year.
Yeah, we've been doing it for quite a while.
Yeah, Dallas. I saw him. I don't know, about 2 or 3 weeks ago at a bowling alley. Then we were just like, just briefly, hey, what's happening? That kind of thing. So I have no idea what he's up to. Welcome back, Bruce.
Urkos. How you doing, Eric? Uncle Tony's laser tongue piercing in garage.
Whoa, who is going on Power Tour? Well, Power Tour just happens to be 2 miles from my shop this year. So for sure, we'll be there. I think we're going to go. I think we're going to put like a bit of a caravan together. We'll probably we got to talk about this yet because Kiwi's got Large Marge. I'm going to take the Charger. His guy Steve has the Oldsmobile.
Yeah, 98. Yeah.
So we'll probably get a little caravan together and go like a stop.
And Dr. Art may have a Dodge truck.
Dr. Art may have a Dodge truck. We'll find out tomorrow what the deal is with that. Well, it's Kiwi's truck, but Dr. Art may be wrenching it to get it together for Power Tour. So, but we'll find out. We'll work out the details on that tomorrow. So yeah, we'll be out there. I mean, we're not doing the actual Power Tour thing. Like you get your Power Tour, package and the stickers and the Power Tour patch and the Power Tour tattoo and the Power Tour neural link thing in your brain. We're not doing any of that, but we'll just hang out and ride a little bit.
Eric, yeah, Kiwi, nice score on the 58 parts. Yeah, that was a good score, actually. Yeah, you're right. Zero, Joe K, yes, but ever seen the Mercedes G-Wagon? Yikes, fast and a brick. Yeah, I drove one of those AMG Mercedes G-Wagon. And yeah, they're fast, but...
They're only like a 14-second thing. I don't know why people rave about them.
Well, the super duper AMG one's got I would have thought it'd be a bit quicker than that. The one I drove, I would have guessed quicker than 14 seconds. But
I looked up when they became the thing. Everybody's talking about G-Wagons. I looked into it, and like the numbers I was seeing were like 1430s, 1440s, which is quick. Don't get me wrong; that's a solid stout performer, but it's not like an earth shaker.
But just a truck to drive. Just a truck to drive. I don't get the love affair with the G-Wagon. They're just very old-fashioned, very trucky. I mean, they've got external door hinges. Everyone's done a retro look. The retro-looking Mustang, the retro Challenger, and like the Camaro, all kind of doing the retro throwback. But they slicked them all up. They made them nicer. The G-Wagon, they just went, here it is. Same old G-Wagon.
They were going for like a Land Cruiser.
Yeah, but They're just very agricultural in the way they look, the way they drive. I mean, they've still got old-fashioned rain gutters like on a 60s muscle car,
I kind of like that.
Okay. I don't have an issue with that, but on a 2024 vehicle, it should be a little smoother and slicker and quieter than that, in my opinion.
Not in my opinion. That's right on the mark. You know what I mean? That's right on the mark.
So we'll be expecting you to pull up in a G-Wagon soon?
No, I'll stick with my XJs.
There you go.
Superior G-Wagon.
It is just the Chrysler version of a G-Wagon after all, isn't
it? In my mind, like everything should have stopped in 1970. I think that everything reached its absolute pinnacle as far as like styling, as far as like, just everything, ergonomics, just everything should have just stopped at 1970. And that's it. That's as far as we need to go. we've done it. It's perfect. And you go across the whole range of stuff, and so to me, anything that aesthetically goes back to that era.
All right. Barry Cooter's saying I miss drip rails on modern cars. There you go. So maybe it's just me. Jay Weiss, Kiwi go to Cuba, few large March cars there, parts galore. Yeah, but they don't think they part anything out over there, do they? Like they just rob it from one and bolt it onto something else.
What was that? I was reading a comment.
The cars in Cuba. Jay Weiss,
yeah.
There'll be lots of old Mopars over there, but I don't think they. Yeah, I mean, I guess they do have dismantling yards there, but they just put engines out. They do so much swapping, so much kind of hot rodding in a way over there in Cuba, because they can't just go to the store and buy these parts, So they're very creative over there.
So what is mankind's second greatest achievement behind the XJ? The small block Chevy. Until I became an XJ freak, I love these things. Okay, I love them. Until I became an XJ freak.
Psycho, yeah.
If you had asked me that question, I would have said the small block Chevy. So now the small block Chevy I consider to be man's second greatest achievement. Oh my God, Kiwi!
Look at the time.
Look at the time.
Look at the time.
It flew tonight, man. Holy shit! 2 hours, man. Chris Cadman, any bikes on your mind? Yeah, my bike. It's beautiful. I had the other day. I took the 3.5 here at the house. I took them out for some exercise, and definitely. I'm going to be disappearing for a couple of days soon. Everything is blooming here. All the pear. So for 2 weeks or so in Middle Tennessee, it becomes this spring wonderland. It's just amazing, and all of the pear trees are blooming. Everything is like, it's so beautiful out there. So I think I'm gonna play hooky for at least a day or two and just burn down some miles on the bikes. But anyway, listen, guys, we are going to wrap it up. I think we're going to call it quits because I got to go to bed. Our amazing mods, Zero, Fubar, Mexican Spec. Didn't see Ari. Ari's been busy. I think Ari's been occupied lately. But guys, always thank you so much. Everybody contributed with Super Chat. Thank you so much. Awesome. You're paying for all of the damage that my dog has been doing. And Winnie, she's just eating everything. She's eating the house. It's freaking crazy. Now she's eating the carpet strips off the stairs. So now I have no carpet on the bottom, like 4 stairs. It's just a border collie thing, right? So your Super Chat is paying for the house damage that homeowners won't cover. Everybody contributed just your presence and your conversation. And Jeff Hutchins, with your knowledge. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
And it's not every day you can teach Tony something.
Yes. And so obviously you need to go subscribe to Kiwi's channel if you haven't done already. There's something wrong with you if you haven't subscribed to Kiwi's channel. And I'm just being honest. I'm being your friend. Okay, there's something, you have a problem if you have not subbed to Kiwi yet. So, and he just posted a video today of him doing stuff I don't ever want to do again. So go watch that. And
I'm getting too old for it. I know that. I was.
Oh, bro, I'm telling you, like when I was younger, I was like all over stuff like that. I was just like, go right. And now I look at it, I'm like, no.
I'll tell you, one of the big differences between Marge and that one that we picked over, like on Large Marge being a California car, everything you touch came undone. Like every bolt and nut came undone.
Yeah.
Like you just put your wrenches on them and you undid them.
That's a car.
Not that wagon. That was nothing came undone.
That's
just a bear to work on, and it's like, wow, like just trying to get the U-bolts unbolted off the rear axle. It was like,
That's what I
Yeah.
said at the beginning of this. I was like, that's where I draw the line. Okay. So
Yeah.
that the motor trans pull, that was okay. That was all right. You could do that, right? But man, pulling the rear out of that thing, there is just no way. I lived my whole life. I was doing stuff like that. Now I look at it. No, I'll just wait till somebody else pulls it out. I'll buy it off of them.
But no, it gave me a whole new appreciation for Marge, and that like, whatever you touch, it just comes undone.
Absolutely. That's the value. That's why people always like desert cars, man, because it's not just the lack of rust. It's that everything on the car is still serviceable.
Yeah. Yep.
So, all right, guys, that's it. I'm pulling a plug. Any last thoughts, Kiwi?
No, get out there and work on your hot rods and go and drive it at the weekend and have some fun.
Words of wisdom.
Yeah.
The Prince of Darkness.
You got to have some smiles. You got to get a few smiles to the mile.
All right, guys. So that's see you all on Sunday Night Live. And that's it. Right? We're out of here.
We're out of here. All right. Thanks, guys.
There it is. And